The book of Revelation is the last book of the New Testament of the Bible. It is a prophetic book that describes the end times or the final events of history. The book is full of symbolism and imagery, and it has been interpreted in many different ways by different people. One of the most famous passages in Revelation is the description of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. These 4 horsemen are often interpreted as representing conquest, war, famine, and death. The white horse and horsemen, the Antichrist and violence. The first horse, a white one, seems bent on conquest. Its rider wears a crown and holds a bow. Some people have attributed the rider of this horse as the person of Jesus, as later in Revelation 19 Jesus rides a white horse. However, others have said this is the Antichrist. The Antichrist does try to mimic works the Messiah can do, such as miracles, and he seems bent on conquering the world. This video aligns with the latter view. The bow the white horseman carries can represent violence. After 3.5 years of peace, he will wage war upon the saints. The red horse and horseman, war. Next horse, a fiery red one, takes peace from the earth. The red horseman carries a large sword and blatantly represents war and violence. This makes sense to follow after the conquest-driven horse and rider. Conquest often leads to war. The Antichrist will seek to wage physical war as well as a spiritual war. Take, for instance, the abomination of desolation he will place in the temple after the 3.5 years of peace. He will take the lives of many in a physical and spiritual sense. Although many wars have ravaged the earth's history, none will quite wreak as much destruction as those that occur in the end times. The black horse and horseman, famine. This rider carries a pair of scales in his hand, and seems to refer to a famine that will wipe out wheat and barley supplies, and spare oil and wine reserves. We see the Antichrist possibly having his hand being responsible for the famine, as he controls the buying and selling of goods. In Revelation 13:17, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. Some scholars attribute this famine to the wars that occurred before it. Throughout history, those who tend to farm and contribute to food supplies yield such duties to fight in wars. Because of this, the food supplies suffer, and entire civilizations collapse. The pale horse and horseman, death. In John's last vision, the pale horse represents death. Naturally, when food supplies dwindle and wars break out, death follows. The pale horse has the power of famine, plague, and to kill by the sword and by the wild beasts. Sickness and famine often break out as a result of warfare, and this horse stands as no exception. Have the 4 horsemen already come? Historians have noted that the 14th century saw a number of events that could be seen as echoing the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The Crusades, which were a series of wars between Christians and Muslims, could be seen as representing conquest. The 100 Years' War, which was a long and bloody conflict between England and France, could be seen as representing war. The bubonic plague, which killed millions of people, could be seen as representing famine. And the Great Famine of 1315 to 1317, which also caused widespread death and suffering, could be seen as representing death. Of course, not everyone agrees that these events were actually apocalyptic in nature. Some people believe that they were simply natural disasters or the result of human conflict. However, there is no doubt that they were devastating events that had a profound impact on the world. Nevertheless, history does have a way of repeating itself. Even if the events that transpired in the past reflected those in Revelation, we have yet to experience these again. It is impossible to say for sure whether or not the events of the 14th century were actually apocalyptic in nature. However, they are certainly a reminder that history does have a way of repeating itself, and they are a reminder that we should always be prepared for the unexpected.